There are 4 attributes of the ideal worker, and ideal workers should, so the first one is ideal workers should prioritize time for their work above other domains of in their lives. That is impossible.
Like, how is that even like practical? You know, if you think of like an employee, and this is not to say like don't work blase. No, this is we're speaking about actual like lived experience. If somebody's child like falls ill, but equally there's this huge deadline, this huge project that you're heading or you're working on, like the ideal worker would not attend to their child. That is the ideal worker, right? And it's just not practical. It's like it's evil.
And that's sorry, that reminds me of so Rizka, right? So when she had just started it was one of our fact-based conversations. So she had just started a new job and she was pregnant, and so she was just battling with, okay, do I disclose that I'm pregnant or do I not? You know, and obviously, what is the likelihood of my pregnancy affecting my chances of getting this job? And she was well within her rights to not disclose her pregnancy at the time. You know, so again, it's
or when your contract is like up for renewal, and like you fall pregnant, and as a woman, you have to be thinking of those things. Like, no matter how great you are at your job, they're always going to factor you being a mother as a weakness of some sort, as if like you can't do your job. No, it's the structures and the policies of corporate that don't allow you to do your job as a mother. Yeah. And
I think like even with the story, right? So when it starts out, I mean, as you're reading, it's like, okay, cool. She did make sure that she catered for the clients. You know? So it's like, okay, cool. Tick, ideal worker. She made sure to work while she was sick. Tick, ideal worker.
Like the only time you get to rest is when you actually pass on.
Honestly, when you die. At this point, this is what is being said, and like that's not okay for so many different reasons, right? And how can you be expected to show up to a company and give your best when you're dying on the inside, right? You can't look after yourself.
Workers should be visible at work, and the ideal worker should be dedicated. So, dedicated at what expense?
What is dedication, right? Because it's such a subjective like measure, right? My boss can think, oh, my employee is super dedicated because like she visited her sick mom for less hours because we had this project or whatever we were working on. That could be his definition or whoever's superior's definition of dedication. That's abuse. That's actually abuse.
Dedication, like putting in the extra hours without getting paid. You go above and beyond what is actually stated in your contract.
You know, like, no.
And we see how dedication didn't work out the way that it was supposed to in the story. For me, it should have never gotten to the point where someone actually literally passes out during a meeting.
Right.
You know? I mean, she says something like, no one else could do the job. What do you mean no one else could do the job? You know? And I think that's, in a sense, how we've also been programmed. No one else can fulfill my responsibilities the way that I can. Or just no one else can fulfill those responsibilities, which is
not true.
It's not true.
Yeah, it's not true. It's not true.
Before you were there was someone fulfilling those responsibilities, you know? And sure and well enough, when you're not there is someone who will be able to fulfill those responsibilities. So,
right, because life happens.
And in most cases, they're not. You're working in a team, and so someone else within that team can fulfill those responsibilities if you're not able to. I think for me, also the ideal worker should be visible at work. The whole issue of presenteeism that Jamal, one of our panelists, spoke about. They spoke about how you come to work and you are almost like forced to like sit and like show yourself, even if you've completed the work like hours beforehand. And so you're just sitting there, just scrolling through Google, whereas you could be doing something else with your free time, within that time for yourself. You know,
we need to see Wanjiro. We need to see that she's working, and I remember I used to work at this company, right? Where I couldn't just up and leave and go to the bathroom. I had to ask them, hey, can you just like take care of my work while I go to the bathroom? You know? And it's just, I'm human, you know? And now I need to rush to the bathroom and it's basically, okay, I've been here for 2 seconds, I need to rush back to my workstation, which again is quite problematic because that comes at my expense.
Fully. And honestly, it creates what these corporations don't realize is like these little things create the culture, right? And they create the attitude and they create the output. So what you're actually doing is the inverse of what you're trying to do, right? Being, you know, super abusive in like how you treat your employees, right? It's not going to yield high results. It's not. It's going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So
I think in the context of COVID, this third point, the ideal worker should be visible at work, has really been a problem. We've heard on multiple occasions how when lockdown first started, there was this expectation that because you're working at home, you need to be available 24/7. Because you're working at home, you are more you should be more productive, and your priority should be work. And I think this is where the blurred boundaries between home and work life then came in. When does my work start? When is knock-off time?
Yeah.
And even the knock-off time is not really knock-off time because I have kids to attend to.
Yeah.
I need to homeschool these kids, you know. And there's this term that now has emerged, role strain. The fact that because I'm doing so much, you know, there's just too much strain that I'm feeling, you know. There is no ideal worker.
Yes.
That's the
bottom line. There is no ideal
There is
worker.
no ideal worker. And I think the ideal worker for me is something that is subjective.
Yeah.
As an employee or as an employer, I should define for myself what an ideal worker is. I shouldn't have to fit someone's checkbox of what an ideal worker is.
Yeah. Because you can't, right? And you can be like super excellent at your work and be all of these things. The reality is that time is always changing, context is always changing, and if you have to look after yourself for whatever situation, right, that doesn't take away from the fact that you are good at what you do, right? It just actually emphasizes that you are good at what you do, right? So yeah, no ideal worker.
Not unless you're looking for a robot.